The big question, does this 131,000 mile Mark 7.5 Golf GTD Estate uphold Volkswagen's legendary reputation for build quality and reliability? Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Now, some of you may know a few weeks ago I bought my dream daily driver, an Audi S4 Avant TDI. Sadly though, that means I've got to part with my current daily, this 131,000 mile Mark 7.5 Golf GTD Estate DSG. It's currently sold, but before it goes, I want to share with you a summary of my 4 months and 4,000 miles with the car. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a look at its condition today. I'm going to explain to you what it's cost to run, and I'm going to let you know what's gone wrong with it. Does this Golf uphold Volkswagen's legendary reputation for build quality and reliability, or is all that a bit of a myth based on the simpler cars from Volkswagen's past before they started to compete with other mass market manufacturers on price? But before we do that, I just want to remind you guys how you can support the channel. As ever, the easiest way to do that is simply to subscribe. That's very important for the longevity of this channel. So if you like what you see, then please do that. I'm sure you know how to do that by now. Also, another way to support the channel is give me the opportunity to pay more for your car. I'm still buying for a very reputable dealer who can sell cars for good money, and that means we can pay good money for your car. Currently, we're looking for Volkswagen Group performance cars or SUVs from the last 5 years, but we do make exception for the age rule for Mark 7 Golf GTI Club Sport Edition 40 and Mark 7 Golf GTI Club Sport S, as well as Mark 7.5 Golf GTI Performance and Mark 7.5 Golf GTI TCR. If you've got anything like that in really good condition with average mileage or below, with a full service history and completely unmodified, then please get in touch with me directly, andrew@volkswizard.co.uk, by email for a prompt valuation. Thanks. Okay, let's start off then by taking in this car's condition today after 5 years and 131,000 miles. Now, the paintwork is largely original. It's all original on the front end. We'll have a look at that in a second. And it is a remarkably rust-free car. So 7s and 7.5s, they're not brilliant for corrosion, particularly down here, but it's done really well. And in there. And I think that's probably because it's never really stopped moving because of the mileage it's done in the time. Even underneath, the black bits that are notoriously bad for corroding are still black, which just shows you high mileage cars are in many ways better than low mileage ones. That's probably better under there than my Club Sport S, which has done nearly 1/10 of the mileage. Again, here it's good. And in there, sorry, it's a little bit dirty. This is just a brief interlude between a week of showers that I've been able to film, so I just haven't had time to wash it. The wheels, when they came in, they were the correct sort of diamond cut and black or grey, which looked smart, but they were corroded, a little bit curbed, and it's not a durable finish diamond cutting, so I just had them done in a very bright silver, not the cheaper silver they do at Prestige Wheel Centre, and I think they look amazing. Not only are they more durable, you can actually see a lot more of the detail in the wheels now. So when these were diamond cut, you couldn't see any of this. Now, yeah, they look good, like an Audi wheel. And tungsten silver, it's a smart colour and it's just so easy to live with. And as you can see from the front, it really doesn't show the chips. There are some. If we get in really close, you can see them. Some of it is dirt. But yeah, it's done really well. I'm a firm believer that part of the reason people get chips is they drive too close to the cars in front. Well, the guy who drove most of the miles of this car was a mature driver, and yeah, he clearly kept his distance. So polish some of that back and it would look like a really low mileage car. Tyre wise, it came on some land sales, which are not a bad budget tyre, but I fitted these Goodyear Vector 4 Season Gen 3 all season tyres. We'll talk about those later because they're not the cheapest tyre. Let's have a look inside then, because it's really hard to hide the mileage of a car in the interior. So yes, we do have a bit of wear on this very prominent bolster, but I've stitched that up very kind of quickly and easily, and it looks a lot better than it did. So I'm kind of happy with that. The floor mats are original and they're still pretty good. Bit of wear there, but that's it. Steering wheel a few cleans, some of it with a magic eraser, and it's actually a lot less shiny now. And yeah, it's done really well. Unfortunately, because I go to the tip a lot in the car, I do pick up a few spiders that tend to live in here. But yeah, I don't think the other seats have had much use. So as you'd expect, they are mint. No kids, no dogs. The boot has been used both by me and the previous owner quite a lot. But apart from a bit of fluffing to the side trims where, to be honest, it's probably just been cleaned a bit too frequently, it's mint. It's had a load liner in for most of its life. All the plastics are pretty unscuffed, which isn't always the case with estate cars. And down here we've got the reassurance of a space-saver spare wheel and a toolkit in there. Okay, now let's talk about what it's cost me to run this car over the 4 months and 4,000 miles that I have owned it. Firstly, let's talk about ULEZ and CAS charging. Now, I have a lot of business I have to do in Birmingham, and there's a clean air zone active there, which means you have to pay to drive into it. Because this car is Euro 6 compliant, I don't have to pay a penny. That may come as a surprise to a lot of you guys, because a couple of weeks ago, I posted a poll about this on Instagram story, and 30% of you said you thought I had to pay. Now, that's still quite a high proportion of people that got it right, but 30% to get it wrong on a car-related Instagram feed is still quite surprising, because I expect you guys to know more about these things than the general public. So I reckon in the public domain, it's going to be well over 50% of the people who get it wrong. Now, this is because there's been some really lazy journalism. Firstly, if the diesel is Euro 6 compliant, then it can go into the clean air zone. And that is actually every diesel from 2015. But the lazy journalism doesn't mention that a lot of manufacturers preempted Euro 6, and there are some earlier cars that are Euro 6 compliant that can, again, drive into CAS and ULEZ zones and not pay, including the very first Mark 7 Golf GTDs. So yeah, I don't pay for those fees, and that means it's not as expensive to run as, say, an older diesel. Okay, now let's talk about MPG then. So I don't know why this reset 600 miles ago, but there's 600 miles of data, and it's telling me I've done 49.7 miles per gallon. So I think that's pretty representative over that distance. And that's not bad, really. I was aiming to get 50 out of it. And bear in mind, I've owned the car over the winter when it's colder. Diesels can be quite a lot better MPG-wise when it gets warmer, maybe 5 to 10%. I don't think that's too bad. Road tax isn't too bad. It's £210 per year. So what have I spent on the car? Well, I had to get the wheels refurbished. I went to Prestige Wheel Centre. I chose one of their better, brighter, more expensive silvers, and that was about £240. The Goodyear Vector 4 Seasons Gen 3 all-season tyres are £116 each. They were slightly used when I put them on the car, but they are going with the car when I sell it. It is now sold. The shocks, £600 to buy a Bilstein B6, plus new top mounts for the front and fitting. You're looking at about £800. I didn't really need to do the tyres because the ones that came with it were budgets, but they were still fine, and the shocks were okay. They're a little bit sloppy, but they weren't leaking. So maybe I shouldn't have really spent all that money on it. But yeah, if I hadn't spent that money, I would have probably made a small profit on the car, which I don't think is too bad. Now, let's talk about what's gone wrong. And this is going to be a very short piece of the video because nothing has gone wrong. The only fault really that's evident is that the rear view mirror is a little bit loose, to do with the new windscreen that was fitted. So not really a Volkswagen fault as such. I don't really want to touch that because it's very easy to break screen. When you start messing with that, it's not too much of an issue. The headlights were really disappointing when I got the car. I realised they're actually not as good LEDs as the ones on the GTIs. Even though they look similar, you'd think GTD, GTI, it would have the same spec headlights. They're actually one grade down. They're just normal LEDs rather than LED matrix. And I found them pretty awful. But there was a tip on a forum. They just said adjust them by hand. And I parked it up against a wall and I raised it a bit. And they're quite high now. It'll be interesting to see what it does at the MOT in the autumn. But they are much better. Maybe they'll need tweaking a little bit down for the MOT. But yeah, if you've got one of these, the standard setting is really bad. You can go a bit high without annoying other motorists. But actually, just to give you a better idea of this car's reliability, let's get the car scanned using OBD11. That's connected to the OBD port now. We're talking to it via Bluetooth. Let's just do a quick scan and see what we can find. Now, there will be spurious faults to do with battery voltage and all this. That's to be expected. What we don't want are sort of hard faults when it comes to engine, gearbox, air conditioning and the key systems. It's currently reading the control units, and it's now started to rain. Great. Okay, so we've got 22 modules to scan. It'll take a minute or so. 9 faults found in total. So let's just have a look at those. So central electrics, the lights, steering assistance, parking assistance, those are the few modules. Engine, transmission, brakes, air conditioning, all that, all the important stuff's fine. Just have a quick look at these. Central electrics, 2 faults. Implausible signal on light switch and key battery, too low. Well, it's had both keys have had new batteries, so no problem there. Let's go into the lights. So we've got a low voltage fault on that, intermittent. That's the same on the right one as well. And then steering assistance, interesting, 3 faults there. So data bus error, so just communication faults, nothing to worry about. And then parking assistant, data bus error again, so nothing to worry about there. And yeah, that's it. I think that's pretty good. Okay, now let's go for a final drive in my Golf GTD Estate, and let's just see how it feels with 131,000 miles on the clock. Well, welcome to the very last drive in my Mark 7.5 Golf GTD Estate, and pretty much like every day that I've owned it, it's raining, but that's fine. We're on the Goodyear all-season tyres. They work really well in cold and snow, but they work all year round when it's wet. They really simply do not want to aquaplane, which is quite handy with so much standing water on the road. So the big question, is there anything about the way this car drives that reminds me of those numbers displayed on the instrument cluster showing its mileage? Well, I've got to be perfectly honest, there's nothing. Gearboxes have been a bit of a weak point with VWs in the past, but this 7-speed has always been smoother than a 6-speed, and I think even today with these miles it's still smoother than a 6-speed ever is. It's just hard to fault, really. It's good. There's no squeaks, there's no rattles, everything works. There's no lights on the dashboard as you've seen with OBD11. There's nothing significant on the fault code memory. Apple CarPlay works perfectly all the time, every time, very much unlike a Mark 8 Golf. In fact, even the fake sound thing that's on right now doesn't even rattle, which is quite unusual. So I am in sport mode. I put the gearbox in drive mode rather than sport by just knocking it back, so it's not so revvy, and I'm quite happy with the way the car drives like this. One thing that did show its age were the shock absorbers. They were pretty tired, so we fitted the Bilstein B6s. So not only do we have shocks that are better, as good as they were originally, they're actually better because we've got twin tube technology, and that is important. Volkswagen have only fitted that to one car that I'm aware of, or one Golf, and that was the R32 back in 2002. So yeah, this is next level sophistication with the dampers. Yes, it does sit a little bit higher, but that extra travel gives it such beautiful initial compliance, ride comfort, and yet find a good road, however torn up and chewed up it is, as they all are in the UK really, apart from this one mainly, and you'll find it's got remarkable body control, and I think you could pretty much keep up with almost anything in this car. It's not the fastest car, but it's got a lot of torque, and also it's got a really good chassis. It's like pretty much identical to the one in the Club Sport S. That's because we've got enough power for Volkswagen to give you the multi-link rear suspension. On some estates and other hatchback Golfs, you don't have that. You have the torsion beam, which isn't as good. So put a set of good dampers on that, and really, you know, you've got a very, very good chassis for the road anyway. So yeah, it's done really well. So the big question, does this 131,000 mile Mark 7.5 Golf GTD Estate uphold Volkswagen's legendary reputation for build quality and reliability? Well, I'm pleased to report it's a resounding yes. The condition speaks for itself. The way it drives is just amazing, and under the bonnets, by modern standards, we have a very reliable and tough diesel engine. Yes, there is technology under there to reduce emissions like EGR cooler and DPF, and those have caused problems in the past. Volkswagen doesn't get everything right first time, but they've been around for about 10 years before this car came out, and Volkswagen had pretty much sorted them by that point. Also, very important to note, we don't have some of the more modern emission control technologies like mild hybrid and AdBlue dosing, and those are going wrong on diesels today and playing havoc with reliability. I've got them on my S4 TDI, and the only good thing about them really is that they're going to give me more content for you guys when they do go wrong. So yeah, I think this is a really well sorted car, and I think it's one of the most Volkswagen of all the Volkswagens. As ever guys, thanks for watching this Volkswagen video. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and I'll see you for the next one very soon.